Welcome, everybody. It's Mr. Rich here. We are going to be focusing on poetry again this time around. We're calling this lesson Poetry Revisited. It's in our ELA intervention lesson. And we're calling it Revisited because I know we spent a good portion of the beginning of the year focusing on poetry, and then we read Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven together just recently. So we clearly think that poetry is important. That's as a department and as a school. That's why we focused so much on it. But perhaps we didn't spend enough time talking about why poetry is so important and showing how important it can be to read and write it. Okay, so we're going to be spending time during this and future intervention lessons reading poems together and discussing what we notice about the poems, how we feel after reading them and discussing them, and what they make us think about, and if we like or dislike the poems and why. We'll also, every now and again, gauge whether our overall feelings about poetry have changed since we approached them differently. So I want to talk a little bit about those overall feelings about poetry, because poetry can get a bad rap, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why. Many people don't like poetry because they've had only certain types of experience with it. So let's just establish a few things about what we believe not to be true about poetry. Okay, so poetry is not obscure. Now, you might not know that word. Obscure means hard to understand. Okay, so poetry isn't hard to understand. At least it doesn't have to be. Poetry isn't precious. And what we mean by that is cute, sweet, or sentimental. Okay, poetry isn't goofy. Now, this isn't a difficult vocabulary term, but we don't want to say that poetry is ridiculous or pointless. I mean, I suppose there's some that is, but this isn't how we define poetry, right? And we don't define poetry as hackneyed. And this is probably a new word for you too. And what it means is lacking significance through having been overused or unoriginal. So poetry isn't unoriginal. At least it doesn't have to be. It can be unique. It can be creative. It can be experimental. And we're going to look at poetry that would fall under that category as we revisit poetry. Okay. So what we hope to show you and kind of convince you is that poetry is cool. Okay. Now, this isn't a statement of opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but hopefully we can get you to do that. All right. So poetry is cool. Why? Well, poetry can be about anything at all, any topic you want to write about. It can surprise us. It can tap our senses, make us see, feel, hear, and taste in our imaginations. It can make us laugh. It can make us think. It can connect us with people at the most essential level, heart and mind to heart and mind. It can express anger and help make sense of troubling experience. It can define feelings and craft them as art. It can tell stories that point a theme. Poetry can make us look at everyday life through new eyes. It can make us think about the kind of lives we want to live. It can use people, objects, actions, and places as symbols to show something about a life experience. It can help capture stages in a life, who we were and who we're becoming. It can help us remember what matters. It can help us commemorate what matters. It can feed us and quench our thirsts. It can protect us. It can take us around the world and back in time. It can heal us. It can let us take big chances yet remain safe. And it can reveal the beauty in everyday existence. So now we're going to read a poem together. Okay, or at least I'm going to read it too, and I want you guys to follow along. You are going to be reading it again by yourself, though. This poem is called You Can't Write a Poem About McDonald's. And it's by a gentleman named Ronald Wallace. So here it goes. Noon. Hunger is the only thing singing in my belly. I walk through the blossoming cherry trees on the library mall, past the young couple coupling, by the crazy fanatic screaming doom and salvation at a sensation-hungry crowd, to the Lake Street McDonald's. It is crowded, the lines long and sluggish. I wait in the greasy air. All around me, people are eating, the sizzle of conversation, the salty odor of sweat, the warm flesh pressing out of hip huggers and halter tops when I finally reach the cash register. The counter girl is crisp as a pickle, her fingers thin as French fries, her face brown as a bun. Suddenly, I understand cannibalism. As I reach for her, she breaks into pieces wrapped neat and packaged for takeout. I'm thinking how amazing it is to live in this country, how easy it is to be filled. We leave together, her warm aroma close at my side. I walk back through the cherry trees, blossoming up into pies, the young couple frying in the hot, oily sun, the crowd eating up the fanatic, singing, my ear, my eye, my tongue, fat with wonder of this hungry world. Okay, so now it's time for the Nearpod. Your teacher will give you the code now, unless you're already doing the student-paced version. Thank you.